Hey, Peter.
Hey,
How
Keith.
you doing, buddy? Yeah, I feel your pain. Hey, I do have a quick question before anybody else gets on. I had already drafted a letter to that, or for at the request of that Thai, whatever,
Right.
and I had sent that out this morning. So I don't think you have to redraft anything.
I think Randy may have missed that when he sent his email.
Could be.
It was on my list to just reach out to you on. I had a couple questions I wanted to go through with you on. So that's good. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so I think the letter's done, and I was going to bring it up at manager update next Tuesday.
Okay.
And from what I could understand in some of those previous emails is that Ty basically said we could use the same letter that we had sent previously, just change, put Hickenlooper on there rather than Bennett.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, he did. And honestly, I'm fine with that anyway. Maybe Randy
wants him to. It sounded as though Sean didn't need any further explanation. I don't think Randy did either. Or maybe it was George, but
Beth looks too happy.
Yeah.
She's so excited to have a meeting today, and she can't wait till tomorrow.
Today, tomorrow. Hell, we might as well have one Saturday. What the hell? We probably need to be careful. Because, oh, you got Sean in the waiting room.
Yeah.
There he is. Hey, Sean.
Hi there.
So Sean, we definitely did as you requested, and we're now having almost daily meetings now.
Yeah, awesome. I'm glad that it was taken to heart. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Just wanted you to know we're on top of it for you.
God forbid we should get any real work done.
We did say 3:30, right?
Yeah, Beth is texting.
Oh, okay.
I couldn't find a meeting invite, or I just basically looked at the agenda center and saw it there.
That's what I did.
Beth, you had sent out an email, I think, this morning with revision number 3.
I sent it out last night.
Oh,
We use the same Zoom link for all of our meetings.
Yeah.
So I just copy pasted onto every agenda.
I think most of us figured that out like 12 months ago.
I hope so.
I was just about to say, not me. It took me about a month. Before every meeting, around 5 minutes before, I was texting Beth frantically, what is the link again? Nanette even wrote it down for me. So.
They just texted me back. They thought the meeting was at 3:45. So, oh well. I tried to revise the agenda for them.
Well, it was at 3:45, wasn't it? And then we added another 15 minutes at the beginning. So the vaccine clinic, was that yesterday? Does anybody remember how many doses we administered?
I think it was around 350, somewhere in that neighborhood. And I just got off the phone with Carl Shell, and he said it went very, very smooth because he was kind of over there moving snow and that kind of thing. But he said they were done by like 10:30 in the morning.
Yeah, that's what every single person I've talked to who received a vaccine through Clifford County, every single one of them says the same thing, that it was shockingly well organized and smooth and slick.
Yeah, this week we had a bunch of snow to move, but they got it done. Randy's in the attendee.
It takes a few minutes for them to cross over.
Yeah, sorry about that. I had seen 3:45 and then 3:30, and for some reason I thought we switched back to 3:45, and then I asked George the question today and he thought the same, so we were laboring under the same delusion.
Well, Alyssa says 280 number of doses yesterday, 280.
Yeah, aren't they, the qualification is dropping to 50 just in a couple, tomorrow actually, right?
I'm not sure what the day is, but yeah, they're changing the criteria.
Yeah, the doc said they're changing tomorrow to the, what is it, 1-3BA, whatever it is. And then the new dial that the state's putting out should be out mid next week.
Yeah, they're releasing it tonight or tomorrow and giving over the weekend for comments or something, I think. That's what I understood.
He also said that we had 9 cases over the last 7 days. And I think you probably already know, but one of them is one of the variants that they're sending out to a special lab to find out which variant it is. So hopefully it won't take too long to find that out.
I think we should move to a completely different kind of a dial. I had it right up on my screen a second ago. Yeah. Something like that.
That's kind of what it feels like anyways, I think.
Exactly. Help me, Mr. Wizard. They're the words that I would utter.
Drizzle, drazzle, druzzle, drone. Time for this one to come home.
That's how Beth felt after her second shot, I think, right, Beth?
In real old ski days, I was talking to a friend one time. He said he was riding up the #1 lift at Loveland, which is Chet's dream now, you know, right over like Busy Gully and Lift Line. And he said he saw this guy going underneath him, bouncing off of the bumps, and he was yelling, "Help, Mr. Wizard." I mean, he was going out of control off his tails, and he was like, that was his immediate oh shit reaction back then.
George, you're muted there, buddy.
Thank you. I was saying good afternoon and my apologies for being late. For some reason, I thought we were starting at 3:45. I see the agenda says otherwise. So this is a special meeting of the Board of County Commissioners. It is 3:40. The first thing on the agenda, as per usual, is public comment. Do we have anyone here who wishes to provide public comment? Okay, seeing none. I think we're going to move forward. And then, of course, the executive session is canceled. Is that correct? Okay. So we've just got a couple of things to talk about. The first one of those is talking about nominations to the state's local government limited gaming impact advisory committee.
Actually, George, I think the first one is the support letter on the I-70 Floyd Hill project.
You are correct.
Yeah, and on that one, I kind of labored over a form, and I decided that at the current time, because the earmark, first of all, our overall earmarks discussion is not complete. Secondly, the earmarks policy, both from different sources we're getting it, including I think Nagusa's office, is still being formulated. And so there's a revised version of that letter with the word earmarks taken out. However, I do think it's a good idea, knowing that there is federal stimulus and infrastructure and funding as well as all that earmark stuff going on at this time to be on their radar and reinforce again what an important project is. That is, yeah, I'd like to go ahead and just send it in the generic form that it's in, where it doesn't mention earmarks and stuff like that, and just says federal funding in general. Don't forget this one, and have it, in front of our congressman's face, because a lot of that kind of stuff, it's the congressman in the district where the project is who has the greatest influence over the outcome, and that's a starting place. So I guess that's my offering right off the bat. And I don't know if you guys had a chance to read that version that I sent out to Keith and Peter and everybody.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And then, I mean, the truth is there are multiple ways to get funding for different projects. So I think it's fine just to leave the specifics out of it. And plus it'll kind of avoid any unnecessary controversy.
That makes sense to me. It sounds like the right approach. So I don't think we need a motion or anything on this. I think we.
A head nod and put it on our stationery and send it to the right address, and Beth, you can sign for me.
Yep.
Andy.
Okay, that was a question I had, is who's going to sign? And then do we want to send it to the entire congressional delegation or just to Nagoose?
In this case, for this kind of a letter, without getting quite as specific about it, I think it's good to get in front of our whole delegation and build some support.
So Hickenlooper, Bennett, and Nagoose.
Right. And if we choose later on, when that whole earmarks thing becomes more clear to all of us, and how we feel about it and everything, and so that we can determine that. And when we determine if it's even going to be a priority at the Colorado Department of Transportation as they're making their choices, then that's really more of a Nagoose thing, because I know that those requests come from the congressperson whose district the project occurs in, unless it spans 2 districts.
Okay.
Yeah.
You get that? I'm sorry.
I think it might even make sense to send it to some other Congress folks who are like in the metro area, because it certainly affects their constituents potentially quite a lot, as well as the ones on the other side of the tunnels. But that's all I'll say about that.
Yeah, and I was just speaking to earmarks, but for now, I think for this letter, it should go to all of them. I think all the.
Yeah, that's fine with me. And I don't need to say this because we're all smart, but I'm going to anyway, which is obviously we would just change the way that it's addressed. It says, "Dear Congressman Nagoose" right now. As far as the earmarks conversation in general, I think it's smart for us to see what kind of processes get developed for us to submit ideas for earmarks on any bills. My understanding is that it's not constrained to infrastructure. And Jill Grano from Joe Nagoose's office called me earlier today. She's going to they're building whatever their process is, they're building a process. And she's going to send us application materials to propose projects. So we can have obviously have conversations about that at the appropriate time.
Okay.
We're caught up.
Great.
Yeah.
Just like that. So then, and I don't know how I misread this agenda, but now we actually are on talking about the local government limited gaming impact advisory committee.
I definitely think that we should nominate. I think the statistics that are out there today with regard to impacts to Clear Creek County as opposed to the funds that we receive is indicative of kind of what we expected around 30 years ago when this came in. And I think that I would propose that George is our nominee to be the representative from this district or this area of counties, to that board, to that committee.
I'm fine with that, unless George can think of someone he would rather serve besides himself.
This feels like a little bit of a setup. I couldn't think of anybody possibly better. I'm just kidding. I'm happy to do it. I am certainly interested in it. I did a little bit of digging in this week and learned that this committee commissioned a 2-year study to understand impacts and their process. There's a lot of recommendations in this study that will greatly impact how this program works. They're revamping the program right now. And my high level read on that study is that Clear Creek as a neighboring county has uniquely meaningful impacts and not meaningful revenues to mitigate those impacts. And there was a lot of suggestions just about how to make the process objective and fair and transparent. And I'm a big supporter of that. And would get onto this group with the intention of making sure that Clear Creek gets its fair share, but that obviously implies that everybody else would get their fair share too. So yeah, I'm happy to do it. And unless, Sean, I don't know, I don't mean to not even suggest that you might be interested.
I don't think the gambling really affects my part of Clear Creek very much, nearly as much as Idaho Springs. So I appreciate you saying that, but I don't think I think it makes more sense for you to be involved than for me.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it has had a fair amount of predictable impact, and I haven't even looked through the data, the study that George is referring to, because it's been so long since I was dug into the middle of it. I used to be chairman of the Gambling Impact Committee for Idaho Springs after it passed and before the Idaho Springs measure came up to try to bring gaming to Idaho Springs. Quite honestly, it was the work of that committee, learning what the impacts were and studying communities in Nevada and New Jersey and places like that ended up kind of underpinning a strong local effort against seeing it come to Idaho Springs. And as you can imagine, just picture Central City on I-70 and or Blackhawk, and to give you some idea of the implications of that, what it could have been. But, and there are people that would like that and say it was a good thing. But anyway, I think that the bottom line is that the dynamic has generated a lot of money, and a lot of that money is turned back in for impacts, and almost all of it goes to the 3 counties where the gaming occurs, as well as a lot of other funds that come out of gaming into those as well. So sorry about that.
Okay, Peter, give us some guidance on this. Are we making a motion here, or what are we doing?
So I'm fine with the head nod on this one as well. Now that you have direction, I think you received an email where I gave you information as to how to fill out the form. And I would just fill it out that way and go from there. It needs to be submitted from the chairman, but you'll see how I did it so that it doesn't appear awkward to you to submit it.
It's like
Okay.
Pete Rose calling his own number when he was the manager for the Reds.
Okay, that sounds good. And then you guys are probably aware, Gilpin County did make a nomination. This will be the first time in the history of limited gaming in Colorado where there have been 2 competing nominees. Let me get a little closer to my microphone. Can you hear me better now? So this will be the first time in the history of limited gaming in Colorado that we have competing nominations. And the way that DOLA is going to do it is they're going to send a ballot to each of the 5 counties that touch Gilpin and Gilpin. And so what I intend to do is reach out to the other 3 counties, Boulder, Grand, and Jefferson, and just let them know what our perspective is and that we're hoping for their support, and we'll see where it goes.
It will come
Nominee.
back before. Oh, I'm sorry, Sean.
All right, who's the nominee from Gilpin? Do we know that?
I don't know. I know that they submitted a nomination, and it seemed to be in the meeting that they were settling on Sandy Hollingsworth, but it could be Webb.
Yeah, I thought Sandy said she didn't want to do it, but that was a while ago.
I think Webb was, my feeling from the meeting was it sounded like it was settling on Webb in the meeting, or at least, or he was saying if it was him, he promised how well he would represent Clear Creek's interests and what his relationship was with the county and all that. But I don't know, that's where it fell down. Over
Yeah,
there.
it could be either one of them. And it's, I mean, I think it's a lot less about the individuals and the personalities than it is about, you know, the stakes that we have and the perspectives that we have based on where we come from.
You know, the primary, we all know how much the primary industries in any county have an understandable impact on the views of the local government. You know, they are primary, you know, the local government and a lot of the services are provided tend to be primary benefactors of whatever funds come out of that that go into the public funds. And so toward that end, I think, and we also always say, well, our first responsibility is to Clear Creek County as an example, and they all do the same thing. And so whenever, as I mentioned in our previous meetings on this subject, and in the meetings with Gilpin, I have noted in my time, like whether it was working on any of the gaming impact stuff or changes to the legislation to shift how that's done and try to increase allocations to contiguous counties. The three gaming counties have pretty predictable responses to reallocating those funds to give greater benefit to contiguous counties. And it's just been really, really consistent. And so this is a way to have a little bigger voice in that conversation, I think.
Yeah, and the other thing that I'll just bring up quickly, because it's not on the agenda here, but we have this bill. There's a bill that is going to impact limited gaming. I'm going to it's on my weekend to-do list to look into that bill and see if we have concerns, what those concerns are. I might ask for us to throw a little bit of time on the agenda next week to take a position on it.
Yes, I would like to do that.
Okay.
I know in one conversation I had, I didn't have time to even see the bill first, and I was generally supportive. And it's because it focused on negative impacts and it focused on potentially increasing some funding for those impacts. And I'm not convinced that list is, I'm not convinced that with more detail and more time, I would support the bill. And so I'd like to have more time and talk about it on Tuesday also. A lot of that stuff gets crafted by the experts in the industry and stuff like that, the lobbyists and all. And so it'd be good to get to it and make sure it doesn't have hidden traps and stuff.
Yeah.
I can put a little time on manager update if you just want to talk about it then.
Peter, I'm curious to hear, what's your take on, is choosing to support a bill like a motion, formal action that needs to be listed on the agenda, or?
So it really depends on, if you're going to discuss it, yes, I still feel that it should be on the agenda. I know that there was some discussion yesterday or the day before as to when we would bring things like this. The reason why I think it's important to put on the agenda is if the commission feels strongly enough that they want to support a position, I think it at least makes sense to have on the record that they've had some discussion and view and support a position. I also think it adds a little more gravitas to whatever type of endorsement you're doing. It doesn't require a resolution, although there may be times when you feel a resolution is appropriate, such as supporting or being against certain type of legislation. You may want to do a formal resolution. It's not required though, but I do think putting the discussion on an agenda is beneficial.
Okay. And I know, Sean, you brought up a bill, and then the definition of OHV licensing bill, I'm not giving it a good title right now, but I think there's kind of three, so we might want to just try to squeeze a half hour of space onto our agenda.
Right. I think since we initiated that bill and have talked about it in previous meetings, I don't know if it's necessary. I thought we all supported that bill, and all it was a clarification of the law so that when we wrote tickets to people for riding their OHVs unlawfully on county roads, it would stick when they got to court. Because what we've learned is that across the state, well, we've talked about it before, across the state, law enforcement and DAs have been reluctant to even try to deal with and process tickets and do anything except give people a verbal warning because they haven't stood up in court because of those anomalies in the law, and that law is being fixed by this bill. So, but if we want to talk about it beyond that, next Tuesday,
Yeah.
I'm fine.
I don't think there's any controversy around that one. I think it'll be a 15-second conversation, or if even.
I think, yeah, that's right. And it would be, and what time are we out that day? Because the hearing on that is 1:30 on Tuesday, and I was planning on going to it. Are we, what's our,
Currently, we have Clear Creek EMS and CCFA conversation scheduled for 1:30. I was thinking that we might be able to just take a lunch break, pick back up at 2:30. Of course, the legislature, that might not work for you.
they say it's the first bill up.
Yeah.
The problem is I've talked to some, that even with the Zoom testimony and everything, I've talked to somebody the other day that had gone down to, maybe it was you, George, but somebody that had gone down to testify, and it was the same as the old days. 4 hours later or 10 o'clock at night, they're still there, waiting, and they haven't gotten to them. So I think once you go to testify at 1:30, there's no guarantee when you'll get back.
Yeah, so how do we want to handle that one?
We're talking about the selection, right, of the,
Where it's I think two things. It's about who wants to do vendor selection for the study, and then what we're doing with trying to collaborate on EMS being in the fire station in Idaho Springs that is going to be built.
mm-hmm. On the second one, I don't know where everybody stands on EMS being in that building. It makes sense to have to me, looking at it from a practical standpoint, it makes sense to have it in a more practical, in a newer place. Station 2A, where EMS is there now, was redone just a few years ago, and it's in nice shape. But I mean, there's some tiny little sleeping quarters, and they could have a better setup in the fire station. But I don't know where you guys are, and I don't know that we can discuss it in great detail today.
Doesn't seem like a particularly controversial one if you're trying to get a feel for. I think what you're trying to do is get a feel for whether you need to be there, right?
No, to begin with, on that particular subject, I can't feel it becoming a controversial issue between the three of us. I think it'll be a common sense issue more than anything else about how it'll function best and have something to do with the opinions of the other people that'll weigh in, that run those agencies. And I'm pretty comfortable with you guys forming a quorum and making a good decision, if a decision is even made that day on, what it is. So.
Yeah, I mean, my take about process is it seems curious that we would want to make a big strategic decision before we got the results of the study that we're paying for.
Right. I was thinking the same thing. You're unlikely to have, and that's why I said if we even make a decision, I can't imagine we'd decide that until we knew what the model looked like. And
the cost of anything relative to making improvements or building we need to know more information.
Well, that said, on both counts, I don't see it as controversial at all. I totally trust the two of you guys to make a decision on the contractor, and and we're not. I can't imagine we're making a decision about anything that's influenced by all the information, none of which we have yet. So.
Yeah. Okay. So then what I think I hear is we're just going to stick with 1:30 for that conversation. You're going to run off and represent us at the legislature. And,
right.
Okay.
I'll bail just before that.
That sounds good to me. So then the last thing on our agenda, assuming we're done with that. Going once. Okay, we're done. is consideration of resolution number 21-27 to extend the emergency declaration for Clear Creek County during the COVID-19 pandemic. And Nanette, you are here.
I am here if you have any questions. It's pretty standard, the same one we've been doing. I apologize again that it's late. We just had an oversight and missed it. I can assure you that that will not happen again.
I had a brief conversation with Peter about this, and I support extending it, but I did want to say out loud that I don't appreciate the fact that other agencies are forcing us to say something like we were having a 12-month emergency. I mean, it almost makes the word emergency mean a lot less than it used to. Like, what is a real emergency? I mean, it's just definitely not normal, but I support it just because it gives us access to dollars we wouldn't otherwise have. But it does trouble me that we're diluting the concept of emergency, in my opinion.
Which were you referring to? FEMA, other agencies?
Mm-hmm. The federal government, I think, by and large.
So you're referring to the fact that we have to continue to be under an emergency to have access to FEMA money? Yeah.
Probably has a lot to do with their name.
The emergency. Yeah, well, I don't have any problems with extending this emergency. I mean, it is a little weird to be having an emergency state for more than a year. And I know our expectations have been changed a couple times in this last year. I think at first we were talking about 15 days to flatten the curve. And I know my expectations weren't that we'd be dealing with this for a year, but here we are. And what we've been doing is what we've been needing to do. So I support it.
The impacts are still real. So I think the human risk is obviously declining, but in managing that risk and keeping it low, the impacts, the economic impacts and so forth, they're all still real. And to be able to get and if they're caused by something we called an emergency and that comes from an organization that's called an emergency management organization, and they make the determination, and but I am actually very sympathetic to the idea that at some point it's like the dinosaurs. It's like, well, the emergency's over, there's only 4 of us left, and the outcome is clear. So it just kind of becomes the new way of life.
Okay. Do we maybe I'm ready for a motion.
I don't have it handy. Would it be okay, Peter, if you do, just to read it and then one of us can say so moved?
Sure. Although I have to bring it up too, because I just closed the agenda down.
You want me to read it?
That would be awesome.
It's,
Man, are we organized?
consideration of approval of resolution 21-27, resolution to extend emergency declaration for Clear Creek County during the COVID-19 pandemic.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
It worked. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So as stated earlier, our executive session is canceled. We're at the end of our agenda. We are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Daily meeting tomorrow, right?
The next daily meeting is tomorrow.
And you saw that my it's possible I'll be a little after 9 getting there, and you should proceed without me.
I did see that.
Yeah, I can't do the whole thing, but I'll do some of it. So I'm sure we'll be able to have the right coverage.
Okay.
All right. See you guys tomorrow.
Thanks. Yeah.